June 5th, 1944, Southern England. I'm standing in a briefing tent packed with young soldiers, and the air smells like cigarette smoke and fear. Nobody in this tent knows it yet, but tomorrow morning they are about to take part in the largest seaborne invasion in human history. For months, this operation has been planned in complete secrecy. Fake armies made of inflatable tanks were built to trick German spies. Fake radio signals were sent to convince Hitler that the invasion would land at Calais, not Normandy. Double agents fed false information straight into German intelligence. Everything, every soldier, every ship, every plane has been building toward this single night. I step outside the tent, and the sky is filled with the roar of engines. Thousands of paratroopers are boarding planes right now, and they will jump into darkness behind enemy lines hours before the beach landings even begin. Their job is almost suicidal: capture bridges, destroy German communication lines, and hold position against an enemy that outnumbers them in the pitch black, with no idea where half their own men have landed. I watch a young paratrooper, maybe 20 years old, checking his parachute for the third time. His hands are shaking. He catches me looking and just says, "See you on the other side." Then he's gone, swallowed into the belly of a C-47. Midnight comes and goes. Somewhere over the Normandy coast, paratroopers are jumping into a nightmare, scattered miles from their drop zones, landing in flooded fields where men are drowning under the weight of their own equipment, landing in trees, landing directly on top of German positions. This is chaos before the real battle has even started. By 4 a.m., I'm back on the channel, and this time I'm on a landing craft, one of thousands making the crossing. The English Channel decided tonight of all nights to turn violent. Waves are slamming into the boat. Soldiers around me are seasick, vomiting into their helmets because there's nowhere else to go. Some men are silently praying. Some are writing last letters they're not sure will ever be sent. Nobody is talking about what's waiting for us on that beach. In the distance, through the gray morning fog, I start to see it, the coast of Normandy. 5 beaches, codenamed Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword, stretching across 50 miles of French coastline. And behind every one of them, German soldiers dug into concrete bunkers, machine guns, artillery, and open fields of fire aimed directly at the water. We are heading for Omaha Beach, the deadliest stretch of sand in this entire invasion. As we get closer, naval ships behind us begin firing, shells screaming overhead toward the cliffs, trying to soften the German defenses before we land. It's not working. The bombers that were supposed to destroy the bunkers dropped their payload too far inland, missing almost every major position, which means every gun on that cliff is still alive, still loaded, and still pointed straight at us. 6:30 a.m., the ramp drops, and what I see is not war, it's slaughter. Machine gun fire rips into the water before soldiers even get their boots wet. Men are falling in the surf, some hit before they've taken a single step, some drowning under the weight of 80 pounds of gear because the boats dropped them too far from shore. I force myself forward, and the water around me is turning red. I dive behind a steel obstacle, one of thousands planted in the sand to stop tanks, and it's the only thing standing between me and a bullet. My heart is pounding louder than the artillery. Beside me, a medic is dragging a wounded soldier through the shallow water while bullets kick up sand inches from both of them. There is no safe place on this beach. Every direction is death, and the only option is forward. For the first hour, Omaha Beach is a graveyard. Bodies are scattered across the sand. Burning landing craft litter the shoreline, and officers are being killed at a horrifying rate, leaving confused, leaderless groups of teenagers pinned down with nowhere to go. I watch a sergeant grab 3 shell-shocked privates and physically drag them toward a small ridge of shingle rocks, the only cover on the entire beach. He's screaming over the gunfire. 2 kinds of men are staying on this beach, the dead and those who are about to be. Now move! And somehow that's enough. Small groups start to move. Not because of some grand strategy, but because staying still means certain death, and small pockets of soldiers, cut off from their units, led by whoever is still alive and willing to shout orders, begin crawling toward the bluffs above the beach. This is one of the incredible parts of D-Day that most people don't know. The original plan basically fell apart within the first 10 minutes. There was no clean strategy anymore.
it became hundreds of small, desperate decisions made by scared young men who had no choice but to keep moving forward. By mid-morning, something starts to shift. Navy destroyers, watching the disaster unfold from offshore, make a bold call. They move dangerously close to the shallow water, so close their hulls could scrape the sand just to get a clear shot at the German bunkers. One by one, gun positions along the cliffs start going silent. On the beach, small groups of soldiers finally punch through gaps in the barbed wire and start climbing the bluffs, using Bangalore torpedoes to blow paths through minefields. I follow a group of rangers as they crawl up a ravine under fire, and after nearly 2 hours of climbing, they reach a German trench line at the top. What happens next takes minutes, but it decides the entire battle. Close quarters fighting, grenades, soldiers who have been awake for over 24 hours running purely on adrenaline and fear. And then, silence. The gun position is taken. For the first time since 6:30 a.m., there's a small pocket of quiet on Omaha Beach. Down the coast, the story is just as brutal, but different at every beach. At Utah, the landing actually goes better than planned. A current pushes the boat slightly off course, accidentally landing troops at a weaker point in the German defense. At Gold and Sword, British forces push inland faster than expected. At Juneau, Canadian troops face heavy resistance but break through by the afternoon. And in the fields behind all 5 beaches, the scattered paratroopers from the night before, the ones who landed in the wrong places, in the wrong order, with the wrong equipment, are still fighting, still holding bridges, still causing enough confusion behind German lines to slow down reinforcements that could have crushed the beach landings entirely. It's one of the strange truths of D-Day. The chaos that seemed like a disaster during the night actually helped confuse the Germans about where the real invasion was happening. By evening, over 150,000 Allied troops have landed across all 5 beaches. Nearly 4,400 of them are dead. Omaha Beach alone accounts for roughly 2,000 of those losses in a single morning. I walk along the sand as the sun starts to set, past wrecked equipment, past medics still working, past young soldiers sitting in stunned silence, staring at nothing. Nobody here feels like they won anything today. It doesn't feel like victory. It feels like survival. But this beach, this narrow strip of sand that cost so many lives to take, is the reason the Allies now have a foothold in Nazi-occupied Europe. Within days, more troops and supplies will pour through these beaches. Within months, this single morning will be the beginning of the end for Hitler's control of the continent. Historians will call it the turning point of World War II. But standing here, watching medics carry the wounded and soldiers dig graves in the sand, it doesn't feel historic. It feels like the worst day of thousands of young men's lives, a day most of them were told to consider themselves lucky just to survive. If D-Day had failed, if the Allies had been pushed back into the sea, the war in Europe could have dragged on for years longer or ended in a very different way entirely. Every soldier who crawled up that beach today, whether they knew it or not, was fighting for something bigger than the ground beneath their boots. They were fighting for whether freedom or tyranny would define the next century. And as the sun sets over Normandy on June 6, 1944, that question has just been answered at a cost almost too heavy to comprehend.